We must be there now. It is 9 o'clock. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the July 25th Cottington County Board of Commissioners weekly meeting. A couple of housekeeping things. You are being streamed, or we are being streamed, and so if you present to the board, you will be on the air. So just to give you a heads up, check your hair, make sure it's combed or no, whatever. And if you have a cell phone, please silence it or turn it off. And if you do get a phone call, we would appreciate if you'd go out into the hall and take the call so you don't disrupt the meeting.
I'd make a motion to approve the agenda.
I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Made that motion.
We have a motion by Hatton, a second by Waterman. Discussion, I'm going to take a privilege here, and I'm going to, if you look on your agenda, we'll take number 3 right away, and then I'll move number 5 right up behind the number 3 so these people can get underway. And also we're going to hear Pat's monthly report. He's not listed on the agenda. State's Attorney's monthly report, as well as we're going to review his budget. So we'll make those. Is that all right with the board if we do those things? Okay. All right.
Number 2.
Sure. Yeah. All right.
Do you want to do number 2? Mr. Chairman, would you like to do number 2 minutes real quick?
Number 3. Well, just in the agenda. We're just going to make those changes. All right. All right. So we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. Is that all right if we add that as amended?
It's fine.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, action to approve the minutes of the July 18th.
Move to approve as emailed.
We have
Second.
a motion by Hatton, a second by Van Duzen. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, there were just a couple things. One was I was asking if we could include the text of Milo's power outage courthouse lockdown procedure, just include that in the minutes. And I think I talked to Cindy about that by email. So I think, Jody, we're okay with that, right? To include that.
To approve the changes for the power outage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Just.
Right there. Would you read that back so that we understand what that change is?
It just, last week we approved the power outage procedures for the courthouse lockdown when there's a power outage. If we could just include those in the minutes, it's like a half a page. So just so we can make sure we know the procedures when if we ever have to refer back. So
That was the amended policy.
Yeah. And then the other, there was one change as far as Rick's report, and
Some road numbers were omitted from last week's minutes, so Cindy will need to make a change and include them.
okay. So we'll add those to the agenda. All right, so let's go back to the discussion. Is that, will you amend your motion?
Yes.
With, okay.
Second.
So you'll approve with these changes, all right. Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Before we go ahead, I'm sorry I didn't make mention that Cindy, our county auditor, is at the NACO convention. That's our national convention, and she's representing the state of South Dakota and all the auditors in South Dakota. She is the chair of that group. She's out there becoming very educated, and will bring back a boatload of knowledge, I'm sure, to share with us when she comes back. And we're going to hold her feet to the fire and make her do that. In the meantime, we have her assistant right here doing our recording for us today. So, Deb, thank you very much for doing that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, let's go on with number 3. We have Representative Paul Larson. And would you come on forward? We've also asked our state's attorney, Pat, to sit in on this discussion so that he can advise us. So, Pat, would you like to come forward too, or you please come on up? And would you folks please introduce yourself so we know who's speaking?
Yeah. All right, perfect. I appreciate it. Yep.
Uh-oh, that's,
Oh, that's for later. That's our IT.
Okay, thank you.
So Paul, why don't you go ahead with your request, and then we'll get a comment from Pat, all right?
All right. Well, my name is Paul Larson. I'm with Plains Commerce Bank. I sell mortgages for a living, and I'm trying to do a mortgage for Daniel Stanton. Daniel Stanton, currently I am unable to proceed because there is a county aid lien against Daniel in the amount of $16,122.22. Underwriting guidelines indicate that all liens and judgments must be satisfied before we can proceed with a mortgage loan. And therefore, what I'm here to ask is for the county commission to delete this county aid lien, not forgive, delete. The buyer, or Daniel Stanton, is motivated to begin a payment plan. In fact, he is ready to do 10% down in good faith today. So that'd be $1,622.22. And then the remaining amount, the most that he could do and still be within his debt-to-income ratios for lending purposes would be $100 a month until paid in full. I did speak with Linda Vaughn from Credit Collections Bureau. They're the ones that are handling this particular collection, and she had indicated that if you guys agree to this, that she would set it up on a payment plan, and we could call her today with a phone payment is how she preferred it, and then setting it up on auto pay, which Daniel has also agreed to. And then moving forward, if we could delete this, then we could proceed with the mortgage loan. And the big benefit to the council, or to you guys, the county, would be that then there would still be a collection out there. And if they ever wanted to sell their home, that collection would have to be satisfied. So in a sense, now you'd be in second place on a piece of collateral, which would be beneficial.
Pat, you want to comment on that and share with us? We're not attorneys and we're not realtors here, so we depend on Pat to give us a little knowledge here and lead us in the right direction.
Well, we've done on other pieces of property, we've transferred, I think we did it just approximately 2 months ago, we've transferred the lien from the old property to whatever the new property is, so it would allow people to either mortgage or sell it, and then we put it on the new one, so it's not something we haven't done before. I think it's just a question of policy, whether or not you want to do it. It's not, there's nothing illegal about doing it. It does put us in a different position than we're currently in. You know, he can't get what he wants until he satisfies our lien at this point, but you provide him the opportunity to get it, what he wants, and then they attempt to pay us back. So it does change our position a little bit, but it's not something we haven't done before. And I think as long as we're either doing it for, as long as we're not doing it for reasons that are based on race, gender, age, things like that, then we're not going to get ourselves in trouble. So if there's just a general policy of how you want to handle these, then that's perfectly fine, but it's really just a policy question for the board more than anything, is if you want to release this. I think the last one, the board did ask, you know, what was the aid that was provided? It was attorney's fees, and so you looked at that, you looked at the payment history that that person had made, and you really looked at how much money he was making from selling the old house and buying the new one. So I don't know if he's selling a current house or if he's just purchasing a new one. So that other person was making some profit, and that was one of the considerations you had. This is a person that doesn't have a piece of real property right now, is my understanding. So we really don't have anything to execute on at this point. So we'd be in a better position if he started getting assets, I think, just to advise the commission of that.
All right, thank you, Pat. Board, you've heard the request, you've heard the comment from Pat. Do you have any questions? Charlie?
Well, I see that there's been an offer made for $1,600 to put down today, but if I read this slip correctly, there hasn't been a payment made since 1999?
Since 2000.
2000?
Yes.
That's 17 years ago. And now we're going to suddenly come up with $1,600 and we're going to be making $100 a month payments? My question to the bank would be this: why doesn't the bank just add this 16,000 in their note, and then we'll be paid off 100%?
Sure, and thank you for your question, Charlie. Appreciate that, and I can understand your concern with the payments have not been made since 2000. The buyer currently is in a lot different position. He's motivated. He wants to start making payments. He wants to move on. I think this has been a major psychological burden for him to carry over the years, and it's prevented him from moving forward on pieces of real estate or just the dream of buying a house. So now that he's older, he's more mature, he has a family, he wants to purchase a home for him, and he knows that this is something that's required for him. But to answer your question on as far as the banking, from banking perspective, when we look at this particular situation, the property that he is purchasing, it's a nice property. It's right around $200,000. It appraised for the purchase price, and because of that, underwriting guidelines with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac say that you can't go beyond 100% loan to value. So in his case, I can't pay off the county aid lien and give him money for the mortgage because that would put us at, I haven't calculated, but I suppose 108% loan to value, somewhere in there, and that would not work, and Fannie Mae would decline the loan because of that.
All right.
Mr.
Lee?
Chairman. Yeah. So I guess the question is kind of following up on Charlie's question. What's different now? Why will he suddenly be able to make the payments after 17 years and plus a house payment? That's it just doesn't seems incongruent.
Right. And I think it really goes back to wanting to move forward. In his case, he was in a really bad a motorcycle accident. I think his leg was flipped upside down. He went to the hospital here in town, and this is what he had told me, that they were going to amputate. They ended up flying in, helicoptering him to Sioux Valley, I believe, in Sioux Falls, and they were able to save the leg, but he didn't have any insurance back then. Of course, kids couldn't be on. He was 21 years old. He couldn't be on his parents' insurance at that time, and he had $40,000 worth of hospital bills, of which he did pay most of that down, although he did need some help from the county for the remaining balance of the $16,000. So he had some bad luck, is what happened, and this bad luck has stopped him. The reason why he doesn't own any real estate property to this day is because he knows his county aid lien exists. And when they sat down in my office, I promised him that I would do whatever I could to get him into a house. I believe, after speaking with him, that he will satisfy your interests. He will make the $1,600 payment today, and he will make his $100 payments each month on auto pay and still paid in full. And I think it would definitely behoove the county commissioners to approve of this because you will get paid.
I have a question. If he would happen to default on his payments, or say loses the home, goes back to the bank, we're in second position. So it can be taken off to get the loan and so forth. Can it be put back on as a county lien that we would then for sure, say he loses the home, then we would for sure still have him on as a personal lien?
Absolutely. I didn't realize that was an alternative until Mr. McCann mentioned that. If we can delete it and then close on the home loan and then re-add it,
Yes.
That would certainly be an alternative that would be acceptable.
I think, I'd feel more comfortable with that.
Excuse me, Brenda, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Nope, you're fine.
My question would be a follow-up on that. What if the guy trashes the house, can't make his payment, trashes the house, it gets sold for less than the value? Is that kind of what you were thinking too?
Well, we would still, if we put it back on as a county lien, that part wouldn't matter. We would still then have him, hold him responsible on a personal lien, which would be any property going forward. Is that correct, Patrick?
Yes, that would be my understanding. Cindy probably has more experience with actually doing this, but that was my understanding. Essentially what we did a couple of months ago is we lifted the lien so that way the home could be sold, and then we put it back in place and transferred it to a separate piece of property. And so it made everything appear as it needed to be for the banks to be able to do the transaction, and then we put it back in place. Same issue as with that property owner. If he'd have trashed that place, then we have a lien on something that's maybe not worth as much of it. But I think to Paul's point and question here is right now we have a lien on a guy who doesn't own anything, which is a pretty useless lien.
Right.
So if he gets property and we have something to attach to, that's a much better position for the county as far as a collection standpoint than where we're at right now. I mean, he's judgment proof is what you would call it right now. If you don't own cars and you don't own property, you can be in debt forever and nobody can touch you, and you just get to float through life without having worries about things. But eventually, if you want to become a property owner, you have to straighten out these things, and I think that's kind of the position that is being presented to the commission. So it's really just a policy question. I think if we can transfer it onto the new property, and that would be mechanically, Cindy can explain how to do that better than I can.
Right.
But that is an option, and that would put us in a pretty solid position as far as right now we have a judgment against a kid who doesn't have anything.
All right, any more discussion? Anything else, Charlie?
So up to this point, since the year 2000, he hasn't had anything in his name. He's found a way to put it in somebody else's name so he doesn't own anything. But now he's going to put this house in his own name. Is that correct?
And part of that goes to whether or not we execute on stuff. When people can get stuff in their name, but if the county doesn't decide to execute and sell it, force the sale, then we don't get things. I don't know if he's ever owned a vehicle or owned things like that, but the home is really the one that really triggers all of our lien and interest, because then that office over there, they get notification somebody's trying to sell a piece of property, and their mortgage banker says, you can't sell it if this lien's on it. But other items that people own typically don't trigger the attention of us like this, because they're not worth as much money. They wouldn't satisfy the $16,000. And we can take smaller things, but it doesn't satisfy the lien. So Paul might be able to say if he's owned other stuff, but I don't. That's just from a general standpoint.
Commissioner Gable had a question.
Just to make sure, so this is all welfare assistance. This is not.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's and to help with hospital bills. Was
Correct.
That
Yep.
okay.
Commissioner Hatton, you had a question?
No, I guess I feel more comfortable that if we go forward with this and then we reattach it and have the property, I would make the motion that we approve this agreement with that in mind to continue on with that.
10% down today with $100 a month.
Yes, also.
How is that going to be guaranteed on auto pay? Is that
Let's
based
get
on
a
him
second
having a
on
job?
that motion. Let's get a second on that motion, then we'll go
I'll
back to
second it.
discussion. We have a motion by Hatton. Do you understand did you get the motion?
Yes.
Okay, fine. I just want to make certain you have and second by Commissioner Gable. Now we'll go to discussion. Charlie, you have another comment.
Yes, I did. Versus the automatic pay. What's that coming out of? Is a job then, or does it come from you guys, or where does the automatic pay come from, or
Sure.
who's the payee?
So when I spoke to Linda Vaughn from Credit Collections Bureau out of Rapid City, she's the collector in charge. She had indicated that if this is approved today, to give her a call today, and we can make a payment over the phone for the $1,600 with a bank routing number and a checking account number. And I believe that's all she needs for the auto pay to take place as well. So then she can set it up to be, I think, the 4th of the month, I think is what they wanted. Not sure on what day of the month. I believe it was the 4th, the 5th of each month.
And then if this auto pay, if there's no money in this account, then we initiate the other part of this, Mr. McCain?
That would be one of our options. We could. If he's in default of the agreement, but then we'd also want to look at, what's the house worth? I mean, we can't force a sale on the house when we only have $1,500 or $15,000 into it, and the bank has the rest of this money. So that would be the.
And from
I would say that would be the holdup for us. The bank also has an interest then that's superior to ours at this point.
And also, just to piggyback on that, from an ability to repay, he looks really good. He's had a job for many years, same employer. Not only does he work full-time, but he puts in a lot of overtime, and he actually makes a very good income. He does quite well. And his credit scores are looking better. He's fixed a lot of things. He's recently paid off several judgments. The only thing that's remaining is just this county aid lien. He's recently caught up on all of his child support. So there's nothing left for him to worry about other than this focusing in on this county aid lien. And you
Well, and
guys
I
are
think
next.
that's the big issue at this point, you know, at least with me, and I know we've got a motion and a second on the floor here, but 17 years is a long time to not have made a payment on this. I mean, something could have been set up on this earlier. So that makes me a little nervous. But.
Okay, any other discussion?
I have one
Anything?
question. So whose responsibility is it, Patrick, then to get it applied onto the county to
That
make
would
sure?
be a question we'd have to ask Cindy. Again, mechanically, I don't know how that happens. So,
All right.
and if we want to wait until she is back, I don't know what they're looking at for closing date or anything. I mean, Cindy might be able to just tell you what we file here and what we file there, and then you can do it.
All right, anything else? Any other questions? We kind of had what would this be? Chapter 1 of Mortgage Financing 101 this morning?
What sort of
Just sit tight.
what
We're
sort
going to
of,
have Chapter 2 coming up next. So.
what sort of a deadline are you looking at for closing on this? Is there a rush, or is it something that can be wait till next week when Cindy is back that we can find out for sure how that process is, or?
Well, of course, as a mortgage lender, I'm always wanting to get it closed as soon as possible.
Right.
But at the same time,
I can't. We've done this before, Patrick, right? So it's a process. It's a matter of what paperwork do we use, and we'll make certain that that's done correctly.
Obviously, the guy's taken steps to better himself and to better his life, and we want to assist with that. But he also has the responsibility of taking care of this. And if this is approved, we expect him to do that. It's important that he knows that.
yep, and I will get that communicated, and he's already indicated to me that this is something that he really wants to take care of.
Any more discussion?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, just stay where you're sitting, Patrick. We're going to go
Patrick
into
probably has
chapter
to,
2.
he's got to go. But
I have in front of Joy. I gotta take a kid to the doctor, so if I can
Oh.
do my budget quick.
All right, okay, very good.
Or
Thank
is
you
that
very much.
something-
I really appreciate it.
Yep.
could we just have you do your budget next week? I don't know if there's any issues with that, if you need to get
Do you
going.
want to do it now?
I can do it quick.
All right.
It's not that exciting.
Okay.
It's not that exciting, huh?
There's not a whole lot of
It's in her
changes
state's
to it.
attorney.
Thank you, Paul.
It's page 10 if you're looking.
It was added.
Yeah, this is what we added.
No number.
Yep. Yep.
4C.
4C. All right.
So if you look at just the bottom line amount, it's essentially a $20,000 increase from the previous year. Just to break that down to the general areas, 12,000 of that is an increase in wage and salary, which includes a 3% increase for all of the employees, and a budgeted $3,000 to pay vacation, sick leave, and comp time for a potential retirement that I was informed could happen in the next year or so. The additional $3,000 comes from professional services, and $6,000 comes from other expenditures. So just looking at my general budget, I've been able to shift some costs around just based on things that I've been under budget in previous years. Professional services was one that I increased. A large portion of that is expert fees that we pay. I just had a rape trial about a month ago. I expended just in excess of $10,000 to bring that case to trial over the course of 5 years. So that's just an example of when you have a complex case like that, how you can really dig in and end up paying experts and paying laboratories a significant amount of money to bring a case to trial. The other expenditures, what goes up there is the increase in blood draws in urinalysis. costs. That just goes with the fact that we have more DUIs and more drug offenses occurring. So when I looked at that, if we remained at the current pace we were at, we would have been, I might be above budget, might go over my budget this year, just because I didn't anticipate there'd be that many arrests, that many increased costs. It's just one of those, it's a fluid thing that I can't really put a number on until I see what happened last year. There was some discussion of a proposal with the sheriff's office that would have significantly decreased that discussion of having nurses on contract like other counties do. That would save us some money. We'd get a better rate than the hospital. That's still something that's in the works a little bit. Brad's working with some nurses just independently on that. Until that comes to fruition, I just have to err on the side of caution for an increase on that budget. If it happens, it's gonna save some money, but at this point, we're just having more blood draws than I anticipated.
Mr. Chairman, did you say that was all under professional services, what you just described?
That second one is other expenditures, is where that goes.
So it went from 49 to 55.
Okay.
Yep, so that's about six
Right,
six of the 20,000 goes there, and the other 3 goes into professional services.
Right, okay.
The last thing that I added is I did add a $2,500 for a new line item for specialty courts. I previously used some of my supply budget to pay for things like programs for drug court graduation, for veterans court graduation, and to assist with some other items. Just to be more transparent as far as where that's going, I wanted to add the line item there. I think that would also allow me to utilize some of the money for other testing that we do in drug court. Occasionally we like to have stuff sent off to labs that our state lab doesn't test for, but the state doesn't provide us funding, and some of our other funding sources won't utilize it either. So that's just an additional line item that I've added. So really, when you look at the $20,000 increase, it's salaries, experts, blood draws, and the specialty court line item that I've added.
Mr. Chairman.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So when we use the state drug lab, do we pay for that? Do we pay the state a fee?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
So it's not just...
And we always ask for restitution, and a lot of it ends up going into liens like we have here, attorney's fees and stuff like that.
Some of those lab tests have to be sent out of state, correct?
Yeah, and that's why I've added that additional one, is when we're looking for different drugs of abuse, such as K2. We just had one where we found out somebody was abusing Imodium. We'd have to send that off for a different lab test. Our state lab doesn't test for those things. So it's a public safety tool that we can use, and so that's why I've added it in there.
Okay, anything else? All right. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
All right, let's go back. Joy, we're going to jump now to item number 5 on the agenda, so we can get these people down the road and on the way. I had an opportunity to visit with Joy this last week, and we discussed an issue here. And Joy, would you just share with us what your request is?
Sure. We're selling a piece of property for Heather Thomas, located at 321 West Kemp. Okay. The property currently is in foreclosure, and it's in the redemption period. Are you familiar with what that means? Okay. Okay. The sheriff's sale has occurred, and in the state of South Dakota, according to real estate law, there's a redemption period where it can be pulled out within 180 days before the final deed is transferred to the first mortgage holder. Okay. Great Western Bank is the first mortgage holder. First Premier is the second mortgage holder, and there are several other liens on here. The property was appraised by Great Western during the foreclosure period, and they have accepted an offer for the property to close before the final foreclosure occurs. At the time of final foreclosure, any liens that are on here are going to be foreclosed out anyway. They'd be gone. So the other lien holders have given us releases knowing that there's no funding there. Great Western Bank, in fact, has written down their first mortgage because there isn't enough funds to even cover the first mortgage. There are 2 county liens here filed against this legal description. However, they are in Joshua Spaniel's name, who was Heather's husband. They were divorced. He quitclaimed the property to her. I think, I don't know this to be fact, but I think these 2 liens are probably legal defense costs for him. He has nothing to do with the property anymore, and there's 2 county aid liens, one in the amount of $112.40, and the other in the amount of $86.40, totaling that $198, I believe it was, right, Myron?
$198.80.
$198.80.
So I guess what I'm asking is if you would release those 2 liens from this property so that the sale can occur. The other lien holders have released, like I said, knowing that there's no funding left to give them. They could still be out there in Joshua's name. He has nothing to do with this property, but it is clouding the property and preventing it from closing.
Okay, you've heard Joy's request.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second
We have a
that.
motion by Van Dusen, a second by
I
Commissioner
second.
Hatton. Discussion. Lee?
Just quick question, Mr. Chairman. So you said one lien was in the amount of $198.80, and there was another one I missed.
There are 2 small ones that total.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
He's already released his interest in the property with a quitclaim anyways, basically, so.
He did.
So
These 2 liens were filed prior to his quitclaim, but there's no funding, and if we proceed to the end of foreclosure, it'll get foreclosed out anyway.
And it's just a partial, so it still remains against him. It
Right,
just
the
releases
lien
the
will still
property.
remain in his name.
Against him.
Yeah.
The lien will stay in his name.
Yep.
The house closes next Tuesday, so I need some form of paperwork to supply to the title company.
Yes, we would get that done for you this afternoon in our office.
Oh, perfect.
Is that quick
Yes.
enough?
That's great. That's wonderful. Great service. That was real estate lesson number 2, right?
That's right. So now we've had chapter 2. So any more discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign, motion carries. Thank you for
Thank you.
coming up,
Thanks,
Joy,
Joy.
and explaining that. All right, let's go back to monthly reports. Jim, emergency management. He's had plenty of time to sit back there and get his notes in order and prepare, so hang on. He's going to really fill us in.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just have a few things this morning. Been a fairly quiet month, other than a little severe weather here and there. Search and rescue team, we assisted with the fireworks on July 4th out at the Redland Arts Center. Actually, it was on that Saturday before the 4th. We assisted with the Outland Challenge Triathlon down at Lake Cochran. And we're taking part with Camp Chance with the police department with rides, boat rides and jet ski rides for the children out at Lake Kempesca. We have done that. Well, we missed last week due to weather, but we're scheduled to go again tomorrow, weather permitting. And this last weekend, July 22nd, 23rd, we sent 2 of our search and rescue team members over to Park Rapids, Minnesota, and they obtained their open water dive certification. Our divers, we send them to certification classes so that they're properly trained to prevent injuries or serious accidents. The search and rescue team and emergency management will be taking part in National Night Out. That'll be on August 1st, and that'll be here at the courthouse this year. And again, that's on August 1st, National Night Out. And on August 2nd, I've been asked to be a participant in a safety panel discussion at Lake Area Tech. And that's about all I have this morning for a report, unless you have some questions.
Jim, let's go down to, I'm jumping all over this morning, but down in the agenda we have the burn ban on number 8 on the agenda, discussion possible action to enact the burn ban. And you're our go-to person here. Have you talked to the fire chiefs?
Yeah, I haven't talked to the fire chiefs on this, and with talking with Cindy, we've had this on the agenda each week.
Yep.
So that we can
And
just
we'll continue.
monitor.
We'll keep it on the agenda.
We can't keep it on the
Yep.
agenda, but we've received moisture this past week, and at this point, I don't think that any of the fire chiefs would be in favor of the burn ban at this point. If we don't get any further moisture, we can change it as time goes on. But at the present time, I would say it's not necessary.
They're calling for an inch tonight, possibly,
That's correct.
so that would be good.
Hope and pray we get it, and no hard stuff.
And in the last week, we received anywhere from inch and a half to 2 inches of rain in the southern half of the county. The northern half is drier, and hopefully they get that inch of rain that they're talking about today.
Summit and up in that country got a good one last night. I think somewhere up in there was over 3.5 inches of rain.
Wow.
So they got a good one. Any other
Marvin
questions
also.
for Jim? Anything else?
I'm not sure when your next report will be, but the dive rescue or search and rescue fundraiser is August 17th.
August 17th is our fundraiser out at the event center. So anybody that has purchased a search and rescue raffle ticket is encouraged to attend the banquet that we have out there and the live drawing for the raffle.
All right.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Is the burn ban something we want to leave on the agenda week
Yes.
to week until
We'll
after
leave it on
the
the
fire
agenda.
season's over?
Make note of that. All right. Anything else? Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you letting us do that other business before you.
Oh, you bet.
All right, Sheriff, Brad.
I'm just thankful that you let me on for the sheriff.
Yeah, he's got a pile there.
Yeah, I got a
Oh, boy.
Morning. Morning, Brad.
Good morning.
That's my duties. Thanks. Got you covered, Don. Got you covered.
All right, everybody's got their copy there. We'll start out on the first page there for our monthly balance sheet. If you look at the end of June, our statement was $11,153.49. And then we jump down here, we collected $12 in copy fees, collected $9,751.99 in sheriff's fees, and then we collected $800 in warrant fees. So look for a total of $10,563.99. You want to jump over to the next page there? Lee's already got it pulled up on the big screen. So top there, cases and calls. The sheriff's office responded to 495 cases and calls for the month of June. We responded to 9 accident calls. Served 97 warrants. We served 253 civil papers, and we did 4,633 transport miles for a total of 24 transports in June. So I'd say those miles are still creeping up a little bit from last month even. Do you have a question there?
No, I was just looking at the miles, and that's the most miles we've had since October of last year. It just keeps going up.
Yeah, I'd say it does keep creeping up. And often those 24 transports, like I say, we try our best to get 2 or 3 people on them, make a big trip out of it, so we're not just running to one location and back. So if we jump down to the next graph there, down just a little bit to the middle of the page, these already got it. Our jail average daily population for June was 86.23. You can see the numbers are still kind of up there a little higher. The high ADP for June was 92, and that was on the 1st of June. The low ADP was 80, and that was on June 20th. And then if you jump down a little bit more, we got our SCRAM. We had 35 people on the SCRAM bracelet. That's the continuous monitoring of the alcohol for the 24/7 program. We got 52 people on the twice daily PBTs. We had 44 people on the twice weekly UAs, and 1 person on the sweat patch. And if you look up at the graph there, that's for a total of 132 people on the 24/7 program.
So that's got to be, Mr. Chairman, sorry, the 52 people on coming in twice daily, that's got to be keep you guys hopping in the jail, I would imagine, too.
The PBTs are actually a little quicker than the UAs. You know,
Yeah.
Tom can contest to that too. The UAs are the busy. We got to actually bring somebody in and find a bathroom in our restroom. So those are actually, 44. That's almost creeping up to the same number of PBTs. That's just shy of our PBT population a day. So those are the ones that are really keep the jail staff hopping. So
Those are twice weekly. Is that determined by, who determines what days they need to come in, or how do you figure that out?
that's a good question for Tom. I'm not even sure. Is that set by the judge? Do you know, or is that something that jail staff?
Oh, okay.
Tuesdays and Fridays.
For manpower most of the time. So, like I say, if we have to make sure we have males and females working because we have males and females coming in. So staffing gets to be kind of an issue during those times as well. So we had 232 bookings in the month of June. So, all right, well, go ahead and scroll on down. And then month of June, we collected $10,551.43 in out-of-county contracts. We collected $9,850 for work release fees. We collected $5,212.24 fees and $6,635 in scram fees.
Brad, can you explain these fees to us? Can you break these down? What they're, when you say work release fees, specifically, how is that generated?
That's the $20 a day when someone gets out to go out and work for the day. They have to pay $20 a day to go out for work release fees. That pays for. We have been using the ankle monitor, GPS. We've been testing that on our work release. It pays for that, and it pays for their time being out, I guess.
And
I think it's usually that's part of the sentence, or the judge has to agree to that.
Yeah, it's also said by the judge.
And then the 24/7 fees every time they blow. That's
every time they come
pay.
in PBT, they have to pay, and then also the same thing for UA and the sweat patch. There's a certain amount set for each one of those that we collect to be on that program. That's an offender pay program. That's what supports that program.
Okay.
Just one question, Brad. What I seen on Kellerland News a while back here, they doing a remote blow and go program.
There is a remote. It's actually in the testing phases. It should probably be out maybe in the next year and a half. Where we've actually been to a training on that. Tom and myself here just recently kind of checked it out a little bit. It looks interesting. It's similar to like a cell phone, about the size of a smartphone nowadays. It's got a little screen and a camera in it. Some of them have GPS, so you can actually see. It's something that you can remote test somebody. We'll test twice a day. Something where law enforcement can actually, let's say, ping that phone, so they have to do an immediate test. So they have to have it nearby, and you can see where that person's at and whatnot. So it actually takes a picture of that person while they're blowing to identify that is the correct person that's blowing the machine and not someone else.
And it could be done at random too. That's one of the things.
Yep. That's.
Is that through the state then, or is that through is it Minnehaha County that's looking at that?
They've been testing it a little bit. That is something that, like I say, the technology's there, and we're working towards that a little bit. That's something that we would have to look at when that is fully enrolled. The state actually buys them machines, and they are kind of spendy, and then they kind of go out per the counties. So,
I had a question yesterday, Brad, from a citizen about work study. Now that we have Tom here, that'll help too, but do they, if they go out on work study, do the person that's incarcerated, do they have to pay to go on not work study, work release?
Yes.
They pay, what do they pay?
They paid the $20.
They pay the $20 to go out on work release?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then the company or the entity that they work for, they pay so much per hour, correct?
Yep. Like I say, that person would be just like if I got arrested, I have to go to work, get work release. Whatever you're paid is what the agreement between the offender and the employer.
So when we look at these numbers here and we see whatever, that's both what the employer paid and what the incarcerated individual paid.
Yeah, the responsibility is on the offender, our incarcerated individual going to work release. I guess it'd be just a benefit for the employer to have his employee back. The person can be a productive citizen and continue working.
The question that came up, the reason that this individual, Lee, and you probably, I tried for about an hour to share information with him, but I could have just well been talking to the wall, I believe. He doesn't think we need jails, period. We have way too many incarcerated, and I tried to get out of him what we could do to reduce that, and he never did have any good ideas. But he was talking about the work release program, and that was interesting. And his point was okay. We have, and you report every month how many go out on work release. What about those that aren't? He said, why don't you charge them $20 a day when there are work release opportunities and they're not going out on them? And I said, I don't know. I don't have that answer. You understand his philosophy?
And like I say, some of that's on the courts too. Some judges will sentence someone to pay $25 a day for their incarceration. So that is currently happening.
That's the norm under statute. So that's the norm. So
Because not all people are eligible for work release, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Not everybody is eligible for work release, depending on where they're at in their process of courts and if they have a bond. So, yeah.
And we can charge, the judges can impose a $25, but whether or not we can collect it is another thing. That's always the part. That's chapter 2, I guess.
And that's why we have the county liens, kind of like we were dealing with earlier this morning. The county does put liens out on people for those fees and collect those costs.
Good. Any other questions for Brad? Anything else this morning? You got.
I heard your comments on, I think it was What's Up yesterday morning about National Night Out.
Yep.
You want to touch on that just a little bit?
Like say, August 1st, a week from today, the county is hosting the National Night Out. So August 1st, it starts at 6 o'clock. It goes till 9 o'clock. There's a lot of different events. It's for National Night Out, for your National Night Out Against Crime. The community can come together. It's for family. It's for friends, kids, people of all ages. Come on out. Just a good time. It's a good chance to meet local law enforcement, meet the local fire department, Game Fish and Parks, Highway Patrol, Police Department will be there, Sheriff's Office. There's also a lot of private business that are coming to this event as well. So it's just a good chance to get to meet people in the community, see some of the equipment that law enforcement has, and just to ask questions. And there are the Fraternal Order of Police is going to be there. They're going to be providing hot dogs and brats and whatnot. There's a small fee for that. I'm not sure what that fee is right now, but there's a small fee for food. But I think there's chips and maybe, Troy, do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
No.
But there will be grilling, and at 7:30, if I remember correctly, the Chamber of Commerce is actually providing ice cream treats for the community, so that'll be free. There's a donut eating contest. If anybody's interested in being part of the donut eating contest coming up here.
Which, by the way, was won by Joy Ranch last year.
Yeah.
No cops won that event,
no
so
cops
I just
won
want to
that
make that
last year.
clear.
What did they do? Bring a horse in?
So maybe law enforcement can win that title back.
Take
this
that
year.
trophy back.
So
Good.
And that's an event that is alternated between the county and the city every year. So
Yep.
last year it was at the police department. This year it's at the courthouse parking lot.
Yes.
And you'll take up pretty much the entire lot and the grounds
Yep.
of the courthouse here.
Yep.
And it's a great event, and we encourage people to come out and take part of that. Bring your kids out.
The municipal band will be there. Fly-by-night band will be there. So there'll be music and entertainment. So come on out.
Excellent.
It's a good time.
Yes, this has evolved over the years to become quite an event with
Yeah.
the different bands, and people
Yeah.
really do enjoy sitting in their lawn chairs and listening. And
I think this is the 12th annual time that Watertown's been holding it. So it's been going on for quite some time. And like you say, each year it's been growing a little more and a little more and a little more. It is a good time. So
All right, anything else?
I just wanted to touch base on the hailstorm that came to Watertown.
Yeah.
We had 5 vehicles at the sheriff's office that got damaged to the tune of about $17,000 worth of damage. So we're working with insurance right now to get some of those dents and get our windows fixed, some of those that got broke. I recently promoted Mike Gubcut to the sergeant position in the sheriff's office. And we have a new DARE officer, Steve Lowry. One of my deputies went to DARE training. So he's going to start stepping into that role here this school season. So
That is such an important program in our schools. I know the sheriff's office has done that since the inception of the DARE program for many, many years, and
Yep.
I commend you on continuing that tradition and getting him certified. That is actually a very challenging and a very emotional course to have to go through that for these
Yes,
for these
it is.
officers.
I went through it in 2005. It's a 2-week course. You go out to Pier, and like I say, it's you probably put in 60, 70 hours each week. And like I say, just like Troy said, it's emotional, and it's a very good course for any law enforcement officer.
One other thing that I was made aware of, and I don't know if this is the time to do it or not, but you have requested to promote within or to hire within. Is that what you were just referring to? And I don't know if we need board action for you to authorize you to do that.
Actually, that was Tom from the jail.
Oh, Tom.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So why don't we do that right away, since this is all part of the.
We don't need to take action on the promotion to the sergeant's position.
No,
that was already done.
Okay.
No, but I didn't know if it was the sheriff or Tom that
Okay.
was going to ask. Share with us. You want to share with us what your request is?
We have one of our corrections officers who, he's a graduate from the Lake Area Tech law enforcement program. He will be turning 21 August 1st, and the Highway Patrol has made the decision to hire him.
Good.
So he will be moving on from us, and we've got a part-time person in place that I feel she is more than qualified to be promoted to a full-time position.
All right. So
Who is that?
you heard the request.
Who is that person?
Well, I can't say because
Oh,
I'm still
okay.
waiting for everyone
Okay.
to submit their letter of interest.
Sure. Okay.
I'll make that motion
We
that
have a
Tom
motion by Hatton,
can go
Second.
forward with this process.
second
I'll
by
second.
Van Dusen. Any more discussion? Any other discussion? Lee?
Any need to agendize this, or is this not
I don't think you need to
No,
put
because
this on
it should
the
be
agenda. This
included
is
in the
something.
personnel.
Yeah.
This is
Yes.
something we can deal with.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. So
All right.
that'd be fine. All right. Anything else from the justice area?
Did you want to go over our budget this morning quick?
Yeah, let's do that. Yep. And we'll get them both.
Brought Tom along so we can go over the detention center budget as long as also the sheriff's budget.
Anybody got the page number yet?
27 is the sheriff's one.
Okay.
The jail's
27.
right behind it.
Go ahead, Brad.
All right, let's start out with the line 411 there. Budgeted for step increases, annual step increases for law enforcement and office staff, and also a 3% cost of living increase. And then if you want to jump down to 411.10 there, we did a decrease of $74,000. We transferred that liquor tax reversion funds over to the detention center for wages over there in the detention center staff. That's the money that we've been getting, started last year from the state, from the alcohol. They give us a percentage of the alcohol tax that's sold in the county. So we're going to transfer that over to Tom's budget there for staff.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. So that 108,000, was that pretty accurate for the total amount of revenue that we get from that one?
I've actually been trying to keep an eye on with Cindy on that. We haven't had a full year's worth of taxes coming in. So
That's your best guess. Okay.
If it stays the way it's been, it's projected it could come out to be 130 to 140,000 for the year. So it could be potentially a little bit more than what we were kind of thinking. So I did keep 34,000 in there for part-time employment for deputies and the sheriff's office. And then if we jump down to 415 there, that's the health insurance. We budgeted a 10% increase in health insurance premiums. 415.31. That's the rec program that the county has there. I did a $650 increase. We got more employees using that program here. So, and then if we jump down to line 421, that's sheriff's insurance. That did jump up quite a bit this year, so I increased it by $4,000 this year. So it'll be a little bit of a jump next year. Line 425, that's maintenance fees and repairs and maintenance. I did increase that by $4,500. Zerker maintenance, that's our software that we use for the jail and for everything. That amount is going up a little bit more next year by a couple $1,000s. So we increased that, plus we also vehicles, more oil changes and whatnot. Guys are on the road a little bit more calls, so more maintenance of vehicles there. 426.20, I increased that by $2,400 to replace 3 vests, 3 bulletproof vests. I need to replace every 5 years when you have a bulletproof vest, so there's 3 that are up next year. Line item 428, increased by $1,440. That's to add an air card in the car and the computers for the part-time deputy, so they can run their Zerker software out in the cars, out and about. They can do their calls and respond to things. And that's
Sure, utilities.
428 there. Yeah, that's under utilities, sheriff utilities. And then I'll also be able to pay part-time cell phone stipend so he can be on call and be available. So, line item 429, that's Homeland Security. No, 429.20. I increased that by $150. That's our the dues and membership fees. And line 434, that's machinery and equipment. That's an increase a little bit there. We did 2 patrol vehicles budgeted for next year, and equipment. Also budgeting to replace 2 tasers, try to keep them on a cycle. So just like the computer equipment, try to replace them out every 5 or 6 years. So replace 2 tasers. That's for an office computer. It's also got 8 AEDs included in there. We have currently 4 AEDs in our stock. We've had since I think 2006, if I remember correctly. They're outdated. You can't get pads or batteries for them anymore. I have 4 of our guys, myself included, and 3 deputies are EMTs. So I'd like to get our guys AEDs and have the equipment that they can go out and be available out in the community there. So also included in that is a couple radios and extenders. Remember we talked, Jim and I came to the board and we talked about the radio issues here that are going to be coming up here in the next few years. We've did some homework on that. We decided that it's best is to start updating our radio system now versus trying to pay that large fee by the end of the year here. And then we also have to pay that large fee in 2021 or 22 when they do that upgrade as well anyways.
So how many radios are you looking at replacing?
Sheriff's office there, we have, I think, around 30, if I'm counting correctly. So we're just going to do a couple a year until we can get up there. We also talked with Jim Sutton. We plan on using our Homeland Security grant funds from here on out to buy some of them radios as well to cut the cost down as well. And the last one, line item 435 there, that's a decrease of $38,000. That's furniture and minor equipment there. I'm just planning on replacing a fridge. Our fridge has kind of been making noises, and so that's.
Any questions for Brad? Let's jump right into the county jail then. I didn't mean that. That sounded like let's jump into the county jail. You don't have room for us, do you, Tom?
Not right now, we don't.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, so starting at the top under county jail and wage,
29.
budget that based on step increases and 3% cost of living increase. In addition, Sheriff Howell and I have discussed creating 2 sergeant positions in the jail. We would promote from within and be be requesting to add one full-time position. And the new position will be paid using funds from the alcohol tax, which Sheriff Howell touched on during his budget. And with that alcohol tax, we're already using that to pay the full-time and part-time criminal sport coordinators.
And a part-time deputy.
But not in the county jail.
Yeah, not in the county jail.
Okay. Under line 415, health insurance, budgeted for a 10% increase. And then moving down under personal services, a lot of those increases have to do with our jail numbers just being so high. The big increase would be county jail professional services under line 422. I increased that one by $20,000. That covers our medical costs, our dental costs, and to be honest, the inmates that we're seeing are not in the best of health. So those costs are going to continue to rise. Let's see. And then dropping down to line 433, I've been talking with Milo about some improvements or replacing equipment that could be done at the jail just to maintain the current structure. Increased budgeted $30,000 for that. I believe this year we moved some money just to cover the roof repairs that were needed. So that's what I have for the county jail budget.
Tom, 42910, jail electronic monitoring device adult went from 0 to 20,000 requested in 2018. What is that?
Those are the GPS monitors that we've been using for the work release inmates. Last year we started that late in the year, so we didn't have anything budgeted, but we are, we're paying a monthly fee for that. We did increase the work release fees to offset the cost of that, so there is some money going back into the general fund from the work release fees that we collect.
Okay.
Any other questions for Tom or Brad? Either one.
Just,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, just before the meeting, we touched on mental health. So the mental health expenses, that's a separate section of the budget, I know. But since we have the mental health professional in the jail for the 20 hours under the Stepping Up initiative, just something to think about is what the timing would be to, say, move that out of the welfare budget into your budget, or maybe put it into the mental health section of the budget as well. So I guess we're thinking of ideas. This might be the time to think about that.
Transfer that over from the welfare budget over here.
So
Yeah.
we're thinking about adding that to professional services, that budget
Well, I
line?
guess I don't know where it would fit. Yeah, it would probably fit in here. But there's also another mental health section of the budget, so maybe you need to have a discussion with HSA on that. But just an idea, and as we work out some of the refinements in that and how we work, that might be something that we need to think about. So the current mental health section of the budget, that for the most part deals with the commitments and things like that. So and that's something that's been around for years under statute, and that's pretty much the contract is the administrative rules and the statute. But the 20-hour, the additional services that we're doing with the 20 hours a week with the mental health professional under Stepping Up, right now that's in the welfare budget. So it might be something to consider about where the most appropriate place in the budget is for that expense.
So are you talking about the care of the poor, the line item inmate mental health, which is budgeted
Yeah, that would. Yeah,
$35,000?
I think I am. I think that's what
$35,000 this year.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm talking about. So that might just clean up something. But anyway, it's an idea. It's not. It's.
Okay. Anything else?
Care of the poor
Any other questions?
on page 36.
All right. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Tom.
I do have the 24/7 budget too.
All right. I'm sorry. Where in the world? I think that is. We have the 911. Where's the 24/7? Is it towards the back? Should be.
24/7 sobriety.
Do you have a page number on the right-hand corner of that?
It says 92.
92. That's what we're looking for. I'm not there yet, so
It's all the way in the back.
it's way in the back.
County jail, sobriety.
All right. Everybody find it? 92?
Okay. With the 24/7 sobriety program, that is self-sustaining on fees collected from testing and then fees that we receive from the state. So the wage and salary, I calculate that about 85% of a full-time corrections officer wage. The individual that we have in that position, she's been employed with us for over 20 years, so she's pretty high up on the pay scale. Plus, she gets the $1 an hour team lead as well for all hours that she works. The other figures, we budget $5,000 to upgrade the DVR system, and then other repairs of testing equipment. Line 426 includes 24/7 supplies, PBT tubes, drug tests, and other testing supplies. But like I said at the beginning, that is self-sustaining from the fees that we collect.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick
Yes.
question. On the DVR system, you said that was line 425, or which line was that one? Which line did you say was the
425.
Yeah, okay. So is that is that the same system that they use for the court as well, or is that what am I thinking of?
This just the DVRs and cameras that are throughout the jail. As long as we can replace the DVR and we have basically the lobby camera, the booking room camera, and the 24/7 area camera.
Okay, so it's just a
DVR.
portion of the cameras.
Yeah,
Okay,
we can
okay.
justify
All
using
right.
24/7 funds for those
Okay.
to upgrade those
Throughout the facility
as long as we have those
included. Okay.
included. Yep.
How often do those PBTs have to be replaced?
For a while I was sending them in for repairs, and then the cost of a new one was not that much more. I'd say
They get a lot of use.
if we can get 6 months out of one,
Okay.
we're doing pretty good.
Any other questions for Tom? Any other budgets that we have that pertain to you that, we got them all?
I just have a question. So you are thinking that alcohol tax will be able to support the part-time, full-time coordinator and a sergeant position? You should be able to keep them all under that. Okay.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for being patient and waiting for your turn. We appreciate that. A lot of traffic
Thank you.
this morning, which is good. We got through it. All right, let's go back to the agenda. What?
Luke is waiting to do his budget as well.
Yeah, we've got, let's see, okay, let's just get back on track here. Number 6. Action to transfer $10,000 from the commissioner's contingency to the collection agency budget. I did talk to Cindy just a little bit, but you can correct me if I'm not mistaken, is simply that they have been collecting more than we anticipated. Now, what happens when they collect more is that we owe them more for doing their job and doing it well. Is that a good way to say that?
Yes, that is correct.
Hey,
And-
there you go.
She says this $10,000 should hopefully go toward, for the rest of the year, for their fees that we will owe them.
But we need a motion.
I'll
to
make
move
that motion to
We have a
transfer
motion by
that.
Hatton,
I'll second it.
by
Second.
Gable. Any discussion?
Just, Mr. Chairman, so
Yes.
on the amount they collected is more than covers this $10,000 transfer. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's their reward for doing a very, very good job.
Well, and it's meant to be a portion of what they collect. That's how they basically get paid. So this is just the mechanics of moving the money around so they can do that.
Do you happen to know what we have left in that budget line, contingency budget, for the year?
No, we don't. We could find it, but it's.
I didn't know if you knew.
It's
off the top of
buried.
your head, so thank you.
All right. Good question, though. We'll find out. We'll find out and bring
Cindy
that
has
number
that
next week.
information.
Okay?
Yeah,
Right.
Cindy would be able to get that.
Yeah, we can get it, but we'll get it to you next week.
I was just
all right?
curious.
All right.
Move on.
Good question, though. Anything else? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Full same sign, motion carries. All right, Luke, planning and zoning review of the 2018 budget. Thank you for being patient.
Well, that's fine. Anything to be after the sheriff's office budget. I'm going to hand out these just until we get a little better explanation as to what's on your budget sheets.
Do you have a number on yours?
Planning board, is that planning board?
Yep, it's 64.
And then I'm going to hand out one more sheet too, kind of a mid-year that I'm going to bounce back and forth in between here.
Trying to confuse us?
You betcha.
Thanks.
I'm going to hold on to your copy.
All right, so I'm going to go in between the 2018 budget as well as the current this year's fact sheet as to what we've got to kind of help us get to the bottom line for next year. And just kind of going through the budget itself, you're going to notice decreases, to be perfectly honest, or at least staying steady. Our cost for running a meeting, that's the secretary, that's Becky's salary, as well as planning board salaries are expected to remain constant. There's an error in reviewing the number for the amount requested last year for the employer retirement, so I put that back down into what should be expected. That's why there's a decrease in that number. And then in professional services, you'll notice that that number actually decreases from the year before. That is because the salary for the zoning officer remains the same. However, for the last 3 years, we have budgeted $2,000 for pictometry, which is the aerial photo as well as the angled pictures from the air. That had been coming out of the planning department's budget. I've gotten no requests to pull it out of there for next year. There's $2,000 that used to be budgeted for that. That's taken out of there. That's where the decrease in 2,000 comes from. If ultimately it's decided if we need to do so and go back in there, that's where we've done it in the past. Publishing costs are projected to remain the same. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Supplies, travel, utilities, all that's projected to remain the same. So ultimately, what we have is the cost of running the office is anticipated to actually be less than it was last year and the previous year, 2 years as well. It's a decrease of about 5.5%. Again, that's mostly attributable to just taking that $2,000 out of the budget from the pictometry. So again, if that does come back in, it's going to be very comparable to zero. I will give that heads up. We haven't changed the cost or the contract for planning and zoning services out of First District for, I believe it's 4 years. We may look at that again for year 2019, but you'll have plenty of warning before that would happen. But it won't affect 2018 in any way, shape, or form, even if it does happen. One point I do want to make, I mentioned about the publishing. We're figuring $3,000 on publishing. That is normal publishing costs going with notices for conditional uses, variances, rezonings, things like that. That typically is rolled into and recovered within the costs that we bill back to the applicant. It's not a dollar for dollar, but it's covered within the fee. Obviously, costs are increasing with that. We may need to look at increasing the cost of a variance, conditional use, rezoning, probably next year to cover that, as well as time spent on it. The other thing that I want to point out is that also indicates a regular year. This year, as you're aware and have been aware, we are in the phase of working on updating the zoning ordinance. I would anticipate adoptions being multiple adoptions of this section and that section is what I expect to happen. In doing that, we're going to have extra publications, obviously, and they're not going to be ones that are bore out of other people's requests. So we're going to be paying those. And as of now, I don't know for sure if we're going to be doing different notice than we would typically do, meaning more or more detailed or not. And so as of now, I left it the same as we had budgeted the previous year, 2017, which was a slight increase from the year before that, which was attempting to plan for any publication we'd handle this year for Ordinance Amendment 2, because we were, as we had pointed out 6 months ago, we were planning on updating the ordinance anyway this year, so it was already budgeted for some of it. I just doubled it up for this year as well. So those costs, I'm not positive. If we decide to do more notice than we would typically do, that may increase in that as well. Those are the two things I just want to keep you in the back of the mind there. From a standpoint of where we are today, I just want to point out, I did not get a chance to do this sort of a sheet last year, but I thought it was a good opportunity to point out, we've been 2 years into joint jurisdiction zoning. Just kind of wanted to point out how many permits we do. I anticipated these numbers to be heavier in the joint jurisdiction area than they are. But the joint jurisdiction area is the area on that map that's behind Commissioner Waterman, the gray area that's around Watertown. And right now, our permits are between 80 and 88%, depending on the types, outside of that area. So only about 11 to 15% of them are happening within that gray area. Total, we've got 56 building permits issued. That's right around half of what we typically expect, which is around 120 permits a year. Conditional use permits, we've issued 17 conditional use permits on the year, and that's in the total area now. That's both combined joint jurisdiction and the total county. That's for all these numbers I'm giving. And then 27 variances. Those are right on track for how we typically have a year. Generally, we see about 86 board actions a year, 85 to 86. So that's pretty much right on track with where we'd typically be. I've got 2 charts in there as well that just show those numbers graphically, but you can see that the vast majority of those are out in the outer part of the county, which is what we would have expected. So far, at this, and that's not at this point, that's at mid-year point, so that would have been through June. So through June, total construction value in the county is $4.3 million. Building permit value, that turns into about a $10,200 building permit value. That's not the only revenue we're pulling in, but just kind of like to give you an idea as to where we are with that. I went back to a couple of comparable years that we had. 2014, we had issued 56 building permits halfway through the year. And that was a $3.6 million construction value back then. 2013, we had issued 64 building permits, and that was a 6.4. That was halfway through the year. Kind of gives you an idea as to the range that we're in right now. And so we'll continue to monitor what that is. To lead that all into one last point, which circles us back to the budget, is that as of now, I think it's important to know, I told you I would update you on hours spent, especially after the first quarter, which was incredibly busy with time. As of now, you're probably aware, our contract for zoning services puts us between a minimum of 500 and maximum of 600 hours for planning and zoning services. Obviously, we've worked before about increasing as needed because we don't want to just leave crickets in the planning and zoning office. But as of now, we've gone through 416 hours through the first quarter of the year, the first half of the year. And that's a contract, as I said, that's a $500 to $600 contract. 120 of those hours were spent on directly related to Ordinance 65 items. So a quarter of that time was spent on that we did not plan on as a county going through that. So while we're going to do our best to try and keep hours down, we also know, and we've been told in the past, make sure that we're still operating the business itself. And so we're going to keep doing that. But I'm going to keep you abreast as we get closer and closer to that number because I don't want things to get way out of whack. I do want to point out I've got 2 week-long vacations that I have to use or lose in the next couple of months, so that'll tear into some of it. However, this is not one of those jobs where you just walk away and nothing happens. Ultimately, you take the vacation, you still have to put the time in. So the point is, we've got some of that. That leads back to the point of the budget, is that you'll see in the previous years where you'll see in the planning board professional services, one year you'll have a 19, then you'll have a 33, and it goes back. That ultimately comes into those numbers. You've got the smaller ones. That's just the billing is really what it amounts to, that we billed the previous year in the following year and so on. So ultimately those numbers have averaged out to be what our contract says. What I'm getting at here is that chances are we'll wind up having one of those where we may wind up carrying some of that cost over into the 2018 with some of that bill, really depending on how the county wants to do it, is what it amounts to. So I'll work with Cindy on that in the next few months, but that's just kind of a assessment of where we're at and what we're doing.
Okay, any questions for Luke? Luke, could would your schedule permit you to hang around till we finish up? We have a request for an executive session that you could probably add some information to.
Sure, I can do that.
We'll move through it pretty quickly
Okay.
here.
I did want to point out one thing, just since we're live in Technicolor. I'll point out that I gave a report similar at the Planning Commission meeting. However, I'll make this noted here as well that so far we've penciled in South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources feedlot personnel to come in and give a presentation and answer some questions at the Planning Commission meeting. It's going to be it'll be a special meeting if the schedule gets short up, but it would be the 28th of August, Monday the 28th of August. I don't have a time yet, and I will come back with a firm time and date for that. But right now, tentatively, we're planning on that. They had told me they could be there, but that was 2 weeks ago, so I've got to verify that everything's well. The format will be they'll give some background on their process from application all the way down to enforcement and penalties from their standpoint, and then we'll have some questions for them. I'll be contacting folks who wanted to be involved in that process when we did our previous meetings to let them know that that's going on, and also if they want to submit questions, they're welcome to. We just don't want to. We don't want to walk them into a situation where they don't know where they're getting into. So we would like those questions to be submitted ahead of time. So I'm going to try and give people enough time to submit them. And then the last thing I wanted to point out is that we finished up a survey, as in putting it together, and there will be a link on the county's website, on the zoning office's website, that goes through the ordinance amendment page that's on the zoning office's page. There will be a link to the survey that we're hoping residents within the county will fill out, whether they're in the rural areas or in town, just kind of get a general idea as to where the populace sits on some of these issues as well. That will be that link should be established by the end of the week. Last time I updated one of those web pages, it took me having strep throat to do it. Hopefully it doesn't take that this time. I can just do it within staff time. But we should have something like that by the end of the week set up.
We could put a link on the front page, the welcome page for the county as well, too, so people see that a little more easily.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
Thanks, Luke.
Appreciate it. All right, let's go on then. Number 9, a review of 2018 budget requests. We have just done that. So let's go on to number 10. Action approved claims for payment. Do we have any?
Yes, we have payroll to approve, and then there is also a few claims, some Visa bills, and a travel request.
And I have them in my packet. Do you have them in your packets?
Yep.
All right.
I'd make a motion that we approve those claims for payment.
Motion by Hatton, second by
Second.
Charlie. Any questions? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion carries. We touched on the, okay, action to approve the automatic budget supplements. Do we have any this month? Any automatic budgets?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. Okay, action to approve the personnel changes. We do have a couple of them.
We have Dave Curtis, one of our deputy sheriffs. He's going to step 10, 2608 an hour.
Move to approve that
A second?
step.
Motion by Hatton, second by Gable. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you. Travel requests.
There isn't any at this time.
Right, we have none in our packets. Okay, then anything for the old business? Any mature business? to
Mr.
bring before the
Chairman,
board?
Mr. Chairman,
Lee?
just a couple things. Big thing is this afternoon at the Extension Center Classroom B, we're having the JDAI 101, that stands for Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative 101, and so that's part of the state's program to, well, it's a collection of programs, and this is one of them to deal with juvenile justice, and the state, I guess, consultant or trainer, Angie Collington, is going to be doing that. So we have invited folks from, obviously, the county, different county departments, the city, to include the police department, and the city government, as well as school district, and a number of community organizations. So the whole goal of this thing is kind of to kick off an effort of providing alternatives for juveniles, because the law kind of, with the juvenile justice reform, means we incarcerate a lot fewer juveniles, so that's not the issue as much as it is to have alternatives for them. If you're not going to be incarcerating a juvenile offender, what do you do? And so this is an effort to put together a system, kind of systematize community resources. And there's already some stuff out there, like the Boys and Girls Club, for example, but this is an effort to holistically go at that. So that's this afternoon at 1:15 at the Extension Center Classroom B. And then just a reminder, the next CCJAC meeting is August the 8th at 6:10 at LATI, so that's in 2 weeks.
All right, that's 1:15, the one this afternoon,
Yep,
right?
yep.
1:15.
Yep.
All right, anything else? Any other old business items? Let's go on to new business then. Any new business? Anything for the open?
Well, like Lee mentioned, I guess there could be a quorum of commissioners this afternoon at that JDI meeting. Saturday evening is a transit fundraiser at the American Legion, and that's all I have so far that there could be a quorum of commissioners at.
Anything
Someone
else?
else has anything?
Anything else for the open? All right, we do have a request, as I mentioned before, for an executive session. Commissioner Waterman, and I think that would fall under item number 3. Is that right, Charlie?
I feel it's about the best place. That's some legal counsel, and
It would involve legal counsel, and so at this time, Terry, do you have any requests for any? Terry, could you sit in on it also? All right, and Luke? Okay, with that then, we'll
Make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Second by Van Duzen. We are in executive session. Thank you.
Do we need to vote on that?
I don't think there will be any action after we get done, so